Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris from LIWG, Long Island Wargaming, bringing you the second battle report in my recap of Crossroads 2013. So this was kind of a fun game in that when they called the matches, I was waiting for my opponent for about 10-15 minutes, at which point I went over and talked to an admin, and I kept waiting, and I kept waiting, and then an admin jovially comes over with a box of his models and says that my opponent apparently had drank a little too much before. He had went to his first game and apparently had to constantly leave to vomit after the or during his game. So I ended up actually getting to play an admin here. So it was a very fun match. He was a great guy. His name was Chris, and he has some really well painted models. Nick did not send me an overlay for the the match head-to-head matchup. So instead, I'll give you a cool picture of this Avatars of War model that he painted up. Really nice, really cool Savage Orc looking model that's not in the GW series. So with that said, this is 2,500 points of Orcs versus Orcs. Okay, so I kind of took some close-up shots here for the deployment phase, mainly because he had some really well-painted, cool models at the tournament. Great shading, lots of awesome detail. If you look, he has two pump wagons over there on the flank, and what's awesome about those pump wagons and all of his models is you'll see really detailed basing that he just basically made. Essentially what he told me is they're all green stuff. Now you'll look at those pump wagon models, and they're facing backwards right now. When he turns them forwards later on, you're going to see they look exactly like the GW pump wagon models. He essentially just made them out of green stuff. They're entirely made out of green stuff, which I thought was awesome because the prices for pump wagon models is astronomical. So there are 2 pump wagons, followed by 10 Savage Orc boar boys. They're regular boar boys. On top of that tower is a rock lobber. Next to that, you're going to see that he has 40 Savage Orc biggins. He has 3 wolf chariots, followed behind by 6 trolls. Back there, you also see his level 4 level 2 Savage Orc or level 4 Savage Orc with a shrunken head. He also has a Black Orc Big Boss, 3 Spear Chuckas. Back there is also that BSB we talked about before. Next to that, he's got a unit of about 25 Night Goblin Archers with 3 Fanatics in them. Next to that is 2 Mangler Squigs. That is essentially one model split in half because that's what you should do. And this is a good chance to look at that custom basing. All of that basing with all those rocks and stuff is green stuff, as well as that pump wagon on the far right is not the GW model. Again, that entire pump wagon is made of green stuff, which was just really cool. And it was a great game because he was such a nice guy. So, yep, and we'll go on to my side of the field a little bit. Okay, so you'll see on my left flank, I have a pump wagon on the far side. Those poor Savage Orcs are just going to get destroyed by that pump wagon. Or a pump wagon versus pump wagon, you never know. Next to that is my tar pit unit, the 40-something Night Goblins. I want them in those Savage Orcs, hold them up as long as I can. Probably only a turn or two because of the nature of how many attacks a Savage Orc gets, but whatever. Squig Herd right in front of the Savage Orcs as well. I figured I could get them into combat with the Savage Orcs, and since they're the lowest cost unit, they'll probably lose in the end, but I'll inflict so many casualties that will give me an advantage when the actual combat blocks hit. Because I have a clear advantage in combat blocks this game, so he's going to have to do a little trickery. Next to that is the pump wagon. Figured I'd knock him into the chariots real quick, do a lot of wounds, call it a day. And then, maybe go into the trolls a little bit to help out when other things hit the trolls. Next to that, you're going to see behind me are my Night Goblins, the bunker of Night Goblins with the PSB in the back. There's my 40 Savage Orc Biggins, ready to move up there, maybe sweep around the flank. I know they're going to take some of those charge hits from those chariots, but I figure maybe in the first couple turns, my Doom Divers can deal with those chariots, which would have been good. And then on the right side is my next to them are my Black Orcs. In front of my Black Orcs are my Wolf Riders. Now, this is the Blood and Glory scenario that I was talking about before, except at the end of it, once you reach your kill point, your opponent just gets an extra battle point at the end. You don't actually break. So this is where my Wolf Riders were out there. Unfortunately, the nature of the army I'm playing against, there's Mangler Squigs. So, my original plan, if you remember my first video, was to just get them out of there during this battle. But after reviewing the game, I realized that I didn't do that. It's so funny looking at my list from back then. Actually, I used the Wolf Riders to just get in front of those Manglers so that they don't chew apart the Black Orcs. And we'll see how that goes. On the far right, you'll see behind the Black Orc unit also is my is my other unit of wolves. So yeah, and on to turn one. So like I had initially said in my first video, this was my first time in a tournament really taking pictures and playing at the same time. So, and it was also, since it was my first time taking pictures, I really didn't realize that it would be better to take more far away shots. So there's a lot of close-up shots in this battle report. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened. So I move my entire army up. I roll first turn. So I'm moving my entire army up, even though you can't see that in this picture. And this is a result of me moving my army up. You can clearly see that fanatics are released, all in front of the Black Orcs. Not a happy day. Here what you're seeing is a representation of Doomdiver shots, taking out some chariots on my turn one. This is really good because I want to whittle down that unit, feel a little more comfortable in the center, because that unit is very daunting for me right now. I really don't want to have them be in a contingency with the trolls and take a lot of damage with possible Hand of Gorking. So I'm thinking about how he's going to move stuff around with Hand of Gork right now to get the best out of his situation. Good news for me here this game. His fanatics actually go backwards here, which is really good because they're sitting there right next to the, if you look right in front of those chariots, those are wolf chariots, and that's really good for me because it makes him not able to move them up like he does. So now I know he's forced to hand it if he wants to use it, or suck up the wounds and essentially lose the unit. So I'm making him make plays here, and I like that. This picture right here is meant to represent that his two fanatics actually touched each other, which was so sick. All of a sudden, that big daunting force in the middle of fanatics isn't there anymore. Really good luck for me so far. Like in turn one, I wish magic had happened for me. Really bad magic phases in this entire game, but this is a good start clearing out that middle of the field for me. And you remember that part where I said that I was expecting on his first magic phase a Hand of Gork for those wolf chariots? Well, there it was, and he rolled astronomically high because they didn't move at the start of his turn because there were fanatics in front of them. He rolled astronomically high on the distance value. I think it's like a bunch of sixes, maybe a couple ones. Like I think it literally was like 2 1s and 4, 5, 6s plus like another number, and he got them all the way behind my Savage Orcs, which is really bad because, as you'll see in the later pictures, or if you remember from deployment, if they're behind my Savage Orcs, what is in front of my Savage Orcs is a unit of 6 trolls. So I'm facing a situation where I either have 6 trolls in my front and these 2 chariots behind me in a charge, or I turn around, hopefully can kill the the wolf chariots fast enough, then turn back around to deal with the, or get some chaff in front of those trolls for a couple seconds, and hopefully save the game for me with the Savage Orcs, because this is going to be a tough spot. I'm going to lose this combat pretty much as long as those charges come in, and it's a scary moment because now I have to make a decision with those Savage Orcs. And then with all that happening, here come the Mangler Squakes, and now I have to make decisions with both of these big Mangler Squakes coming right towards my Black Orcs. And this is where I believe I commit to losing my Pump Wagon and one of my units of Wolf Riders to the Mangler Squigs, just because if both of those, which was imminent, which was imminent going through my Black Orcs, if I didn't use my chaff on them, oh my gosh, it just would have been devastating. I know that I have the advantage here in combat blocks, but I'm not sure with what he had for artillery and whatnot if I could have even survived. With 2 Mangler Squigs going through Black Orcs plus Foot of Gork, because he had a good magic game this game. So yeah, I'm getting pretty scared here, guys. So these next couple slides will I'll show you that everything kind of moves up a little bit, and then everything's pretty close together. And then there's this a decision that I made that's my Night Goblin Shaman to put it into the Mangler Squig. Looking at the battlefield at that point, the Night Goblin Shaman was actually the least pertinent of all of my heroes, or any of the units that I had on the field. I know it's crazy to think that way, But of all the units that could have done me some good, believe it or not, the Shaman was so low on the totem pole. I didn't roll foot this game, to my knowledge. Looking at the bat reps, you'll see that I barely do any damage with something like that in the first place. So I couldn't, I wasn't worried about the ruby ringing the trolls, and I really just didn't want that Mangler Squig to go through my Savage Orcs at that point, then have the trolls immediately follow it up, then have the chariots immediately follow it up, because that unit would have broke so quickly from something like that. And the next thing you know, I got the Squig behind me. I have to worry about it coming back. And since he has less combat blocks, he doesn't really care if it comes back and it goes through his Night Goblins. Whatever to him, and that's the side of the field that it would have been on. So it was an incredible risk that I took getting rid of my Shaman. In the long run, at the end of the game, it turns out not mattering. It was, probably, I believe, what would have been the best decision, because there was a lack of chaff on that side of the board that could have, walked into this thing easily. I believe this was the best decision as I look back at the battle report. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. The Sacrificial Lamb Night Goblin, so, yeah. I think I named this Night Goblin Rupert or something like that, just because I feel like, and no offense to anybody named Rupert, but I was like, this guy feels like a Rupert. He would do something like this. So there you go. Here's my pump wagon charging into his pump wagon, and this is the best picture of his, just to show you. Mine's a GW model. His is a non-GW model, and I actually like his more than I like mine. So yeah, so my pump wagon charges into him. And you're gonna see it pretty much obliterates the pump wagon, charges through, overruns into the Savage Orc unit in a funny way that it's gonna clip it on the side. And this is really, really good for me to eliminate that it's not like the crazy strongest unit, but it's there on the flank and it can cause some wounds and make my life terrible. But this was my plan initially, is just to get this pump wagon up there, and it ended up working. And we're back to his movement phase, because my magic phases have not gone my way this game. And oh, there are those trolls moving up, scaring me here. Those trolls moving up is not good for me. This is a nice lay of the land shot to show you that what the battlefield kind of looks like right now. And if you look, you can see the orientation of my savages. I decided to turn them around. I thought maybe the squigs could get in the way for a turn with the trolls. So on my turn, I had turned them around, and there is no charge yet, just because on my turn I had turned them around. And we're gonna move on. These pictures are jumping around a little bit. Like I said, it was my first time taking photos, so it cleans up after this game, I think. And now I'm waiting for to see what's gonna happen on the other side of the flank. Let's see what he chooses to do with his movement and charges. He makes a really, really, really long, good charge with his pump wagon right into the flank of the Black Orcs. Pretty scary. It's not decked out quite like mine are, so it's not as daunting, because I think it's only strength 5, but I get the or it's only strength 4 or whatever. It's not as potent as it could be, so that's definitely an okay thing for me. Here are the results of the pump wagon charging into those Savage Orcs, killing 5 of them. Pretty good for me. So here's my Savage Orcs going into, or the actual combat about to take place here between me and the and those chariots. You're gonna see some fanatics coming out. Things are still moving up, and here you're gonna see that Savage Orcs defeated the chariots. Lots of casualties. It's okay, lots of casualties. It's alright, I'm going to get a little bit of an overrun. It's going to get me stuck for a second. Then after that, I'll turn around. There's a good amount of space between me and the trolls. So I'm thinking, alright, I'll get a little bit of an overrun. This will be nice. And then this happens. So I make my overrun of a couple inches. Savage Orcs go. And I'm thinking I'm in good shape. I'm going to turn around this turn with them, face the trolls. And this is really going to, propel me to victory. I am in a position now where he does not... I don't think he really stands a chance. I got the combat blocks up against what I want. I have my Black Orcs going to be able to come around the flank of these two combats between the Squigs and the Savage Orcs, the Squigs and his Savage Orcs, as well as my Savage Orcs and his Trolls. I'm thinking things are going to go really great from here. And that one is a failed animosity test on the Savage Orcs. And they rolled either a 1 or a 2, whatever it was, whether they squabbled or stood still. they were stuck there with their backs to the trolls, and at that point, it was just one of those moments where I have learned that with orcs you gotta roll with the punches, and you gotta know you're playing an army where on turn one or the top of the turn you gotta roll a dice to see if you can do anything, and I've gotten much better with understanding that. But of all the moments to fail animosity, the Savage Orcs choose this one, and it was just so my heart sank so much in this moment where I felt I had such a clear-cut victory ahead of me, a straightforward move up, kill him before he gets to me attitude. And then this happened, so I think I face-palmed so hard after this. And what you're seeing here is a irresistible forest foot of Gork that didn't really do much, but I took pictures of the dice because I thought it was funny that I got the 2 6s and 4 1s, because 2 6s and 4 1s actually barely gets you the spell in the first place. But of course, I irresistible force it off, and I use it on some Savage Orcs here, as you'll see, and I stomp these Savage Orcs. And you'll also see there's another casualty in this picture, and that casualty is my shaman because he gets sucked into the warp, and my life has gotten even worse. I went from having a positional advantage I went from having what seemed like a positional advantage and a artillery/combat advantage to losing every little to essentially forfeiting a shaman, forfeiting a 285 point unit, 85 point lord, and my Savage Orcs are going to get nom-nommed. So, heartbreaking. And this is the result of the Black Orc / Pump Wagon combat on my flank. Very disconcerting. Not happy. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm sitting here thinking about how I can possibly win this game at this point, because I think it's a matter of time before things get chomped up. With that said, I still have that big unit of squigs against a smaller unit of Savage Orcs, so that could really work to my advantage. And that's probably my biggest saving grace right now / my ace in the hole. So yep, my artillery causes his Night Goblins to panic. Not that that's a huge thing, but that is a big little win that I needed, because they were going to get in the way of some flank charges with those Black Orcs, potentially. So that then every little bit's going to count right now for me. Here's a little lay of the land, so you can see kind of what's going on, / what's dead, what's not dead. Coming up to his turn right now, this is that big moment where things are going to get decided. You can see by the number of dead Savage Orc models that are off on that flank side. My Foot of Gork really did its job. Unfortunately, I lost my shaman, like we showed before, and it's a tough spot. Let's just pray that these trolls fail their charge so that I can maybe pull out those Savage Orcs and wheel them around and get something good out of it. So let's pray. But unfortunately, the fact that I go to church every single Sunday didn't matter in this case. The trolls made their charge into the back of the Savage Orcs, and at this point they're gone. It's just they're definitely gonna die. Right here, right now. So I'm starting to brainstorm. How am I gonna handle this? Because at this point, those trolls are behind me. If I turn around to face them, I'm in a bad spot. Nor do I really want the Black Orcs with them. I'd rather preserve the Black Orc points at this point, because I feel like it's more likely for me to kill them with some artillery than it is for me to turn around and not just get my Black Orcs slaughtered by war machines. I want to keep moving them up, maybe pick up some points on the other side of the board with them, because they're the most apt right now to do that, or in the best position. And here's where I'll be the first person to tell you that I absolutely misplayed this. This is my newness to tournaments and newness to playing a lot of games with other people. I moved my squig herd too far up, so that, and I wasn't positioned well enough that when his Savage Orcs came into my Night Goblins and eventually will destroy them, I'm not in a position to counter with the squigs. And this is 100%, 150% my fault on positioning. And it's a really new rookie mistake that I can tell you after this game I will never, ever make a decision like this again. With that said, the Savage Orc charge was quite large that he made. Like rolling a 9 or something like that. So there's kind of where I'm sitting on this. That doesn't excuse the fact that I didn't leave myself the room with the squigs to accomplish what I needed to accomplish, though. Here's kind of another lay of the land, taking a look at where everything is in relation to each other. And then he manages to move that boar boy unit up, which is not good, because then I even lose the hope that I had of getting a flank charge. A lot of mispositioning on my part in these engagements, and you can really see it here in that I kind of let this happen, and I definitely could have prevented this just by changing orientations or things like that. So I only have myself to blame, but it was a really good learning experience watching myself make this mistake, especially at a tournament. And this is my night goblins dying. And now these savage orcs are out of reach for me, which is the tough part because there's only a couple turns left, maybe 2, maybe 3, and I don't think my squigs can get to them to clean up those points back there. So while I technically have more physical points on the board, unless I kill that unit, I'm not going to get anything out of it. So it was very disheartening to watch all that take place. And at this point, I've kind of lost control of the game, so I'm kind of thinking of how I can get some points back. And here's where I made an iffy decision to send the squigs into the boar boys. Well, it wasn't iffy. The squigs would have died if I turned them around and tried to go for the savage orcs at that point, especially without Hand of Gork to put me in a position where the boar boys couldn't have gotten me. So, like, in a perfect world, those squigs definitely would have turned around and went for those savage orcs, but I would have lost the squigs, and that's where I wished I had Hand of Gork there. So, the squigs are going to charge into those savages, and I think we all know how that's going to turn out. And there go the savage orcs. You see the black orcs moving up across the board, going to try to get to his side of the field. For this scenario, we wanted to control quadrants of the board with the most physical models. So I can definitely win that upper right quadrant with the black orcs, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. You see those savage orcs are dead, as we expected it to be. I let that go a while ago. So yeah, trying to recover here, trying to scrap up what I can, trying to be a good tournament player and not give up on the game. Squigs win, they turn around. There's nothing they can really do on the other side of the board because of the nature of the tournament. I could have tried to control the upper left quadrant of the board with the squigs. The issue with that is that in the scenarios in this game, or in this tournament, you can only do that with a scoring unit, and the squig herd was not a scoring unit. So at that point, I knew they weren't going to die. I was going to commit them to maybe, hopefully, making some gigantic charge against the savage orcs as they tried to flee away, because that was inevitably what they were going to do. Because I feel like that was the best thing / the only thing they could have done at that point. Trolls overrun, get further to the back of the board, try to take out some war machines, probably scoop up some points for himself. I'm also looking at a situation where, I'm going to lose some war machines. And you'll also see here the savage orcs are charging my other war machines. Incredibly awfully oriented picture. You see the squigs charging into a pump wagon, just trying to scoop up what points I can. I think at this point I had given up on them being able to make it / after I saw that he charged the savage orcs into that catapult from the previous picture, I knew that he was going to overrun off the board, and once he overran off the board, it would have taken away the turn, because it was turn 5. I would never have been able to charge them to make it on any planet, so I figured I might as well scoop up what points I can, and that was the pump wagon for me. So he kills my war machine with those savage orcs, and what you're going to see now is a pissing match between the squigs and the savage orcs, where essentially the squigs kind of snarl at him, and I'm thinking, what, maybe I can actually catch this. This is maybe feasible. And then he does a very intelligent move here, and you'll see he's handed gorks those savage orcs to the edge of the board. So I definitely can't get back there and get them. Savage orcs are kind of out of harm's way right now, and this is turn 6, so it's the last turn of the game. So we'll run some. I'll let you run. We'll watch. I'll let you watch some pictures while I go through this. My black orcs moved up the side, overtook the opposite side of the board, killing some night goblins and stuff. But unfortunately, I lost this game, but barely. It was like it was 20-0 plus the quadrants, plus a few things. I believe it was something like 13-10. It was basically almost a tie, but I did lose. It was a very fun game. Chris was really fun. He was running around giving rulings while playing, and he was so, even though he wasn't in the tournament, he was so nice about getting back to play, knowing that that's what I was there to do. Really great guy. I look forward to seeing him again probably in the spring. I learned a lot from this game about that squig herd. really not in the best position. You know, and that's one of those moments where my noviceness in, you know, in battle lines and stuff kind of comes out, because, you know, while pushing across the board is good, they really should have hung back and angled differently. There was no threat imminent on the other side. I should have foreseen that coming, because I was setting that situation up for myself, and I didn't handle it properly. Granted, I got some very poor luck losing my shaman, as well as losing my as well as failing that animosity test. Those are really the two big, you know, the straws that broke the camel's back in this game. You know, artillery did okay. That hand of Gork at the beginning was frustrating, and you know, I don't want to say that that won him the game, um, because if I had nailed that charge and then turned back around, it would have been okay. And at that point, that was him trying to maximize that chariot rather than losing it. Um, so, you know, that failed animosity really, really killed me. Like I said, I think if you look at this, losing that shaman wasn't a gigantic deal, because I believe it was in the Black Orc unit, and you know, it would have done nothing the whole game anyway. It would have been out of line of sight a lot of stuff unless I chose to move it. So this was a really fun game. I learned a lot. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about some of the decisions I made, because I am the first person to tell you that I am not making the best decisions. And we will go on to my next game. Game 3 will be me against uh, a a high elf player. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys soon.